The mop was too clean. Nadine Okoye noticed it on a Tuesday, the way she noticed everything in the Aureum Crown, not because she was looking for it specifically, but because in 15 years of managing luxury hotels, she had trained herself to see the things that were slightly wrong before they became the things that were completely wrong. The new janitor's mop was too clean. Not the mop itself, that was properly wet, properly used, leaving the proper faint tracks on the marble floors of the hotel's lower service corridor. She meant the way he held it. The way a man held a mop told you everything about whether the mop was familiar to him. Familiar hands gripped handles mid-shaft, slightly forward, weight distributed through the shoulders. This man held it the way you held something you had decided to hold correctly, with the awareness of someone performing a task rather than inhabiting one. She watched him from the corridor's end for 11 seconds. He was perhaps 50. Korean. The kind of face that had been specific once and had been weathered into something more general, strong lines, a quality of attention in the eyes that she would have called sharp if she had been inclined to give compliments to people she had already decided to watch. He moved slowly, methodically. He was not cutting corners, which was itself unusual for the late Tuesday night shift. He was cleaning the corridor with the specific, unhurried completeness of someone who was not cleaning a corridor. He was reading it. She filed this. She was about to turn and continue her rounds when the service door at the far end opened and Emeka, one of the front desk supervisors, 26, ambitious in the wrong directions, came through with a VIP arrival folder he was supposed to have submitted 3 hours ago. He nearly walked into the janitor. He started to issue the automatic, careless apology of someone who has barely registered a collision with a person below their perceived status. Then he looked at the janitor's face. Something happened to Emeka's posture that Nadine watched with considerable interest. It was subtle. Involuntary. The specific physical adjustment of a person who has recognized something their conscious mind has not yet fully processed, a slight backward lean, a reordering of the shoulders, a quality of attention that had been careless becoming suddenly very careful. He moved aside, not casually. Deliberately, he said something Nadine was too far away to hear. The janitor said something back. Emeka walked past him quickly with the trajectory of someone choosing not to linger. Nadine stood at the corridor's end. She thought, what was that? She turned. She continued her rounds. She thought about it for the rest of the evening without resolving it. His name was Jae-hoon. That was all the HR file said. Kang Jae-hoon, Korean national, Lagos, work permit current, no previous hotel employment listed, hired through the external staffing agency the Aureum Crown used for operational positions. She pulled the file the next morning. The staffing agency was real. The permit was valid. The references were brief and not from the hospitality industry, unusual but not disqualifying for a cleaning position. She called the staffing agency. The coordinator was efficient and pleasant and confirmed everything in the file. She set the phone down. She thought, this is fine. This is a janitor, she thought. Emeka stepped aside. She went back to the actual emergencies of her morning. The chairman's suite renovation running 3 days behind. The Lebanese diplomat's security team with demands creative in their specificity. The quarterly financial review producing numbers she found increasingly difficult to reconcile with the business she believed she was running. She put the janitor away. She did not put away the thing she had noticed. A janitor who holds a mop like a secret. An executive who steps aside for a cleaner. And a hotel with money disappearing through holes nobody can find. Where are you watching from right now? Drop your city in the comments and subscribe immediately. Because this story is about to become your problem too. He was on the executive floor on Thursday. Not cleaning it, standing at the end of the corridor near the east wing, which contained the chairman's suite and 3 board-level private offices, holding a set of fresh towels and looking at the corridor the way she had watched him look at the service passage. Reading it, mapping it, filing it. Mr. Kang, she said. He turned. He looked at her with the specific quality she was beginning to recognize, complete attention, no performance. No nervousness, which was relevant because most staff, encountering Nadine on the executive floor without a clear reason for being there, experienced at minimum a visible elevation in their anxiety. He experienced nothing of the sort. This floor is restricted to senior housekeeping, she said. You are not senior housekeeping. Regular cleaner called out sick, he said. His English was accented but clear. I was reassigned. Whom, she said. The shift supervisor, he said. She would check this. She did check it. It was true. She told him to complete the task and notify the supervisor when finished. He nodded. She walked away. She did not see him watch her with an expression that, had she turned, she would have found impossible to categorize. The quarterly audit came back wrong. Not dramatically wrong, not the kind of wrong that announced itself in flashing numbers and immediate crisis. The quiet wrong of figures that were plausible individually and collectively problematic, of revenue streams slightly less than expected for reasons slightly more various than expected, of a pattern that revealed itself only when you laid every sheet side by side and looked at the gaps. Nadine laid every sheet side by side at 11 p.m. on a Friday. She looked at the gaps. She thought, someone is stealing from this hotel. She thought, not someone, multiple someones. Or one someone with access to multiple channels. She thought about the board members she had noticed in quiet, unscheduled conversations with Victor Ambw. She thought about Victor, regional executive, 12 years at the Aureum Crown, charming in the specific way of men who had practiced charm until it became reflexive. She thought about the way he had redirected 3 of her audit queries in the past month with explanations that were smooth and plausible, and she now understood, carefully designed to not quite answer the actual question. She printed 3 copies of the gap analysis. She put one in her desk. She put one in her personal bag. She shredded the third, because she had started making decisions about which information to handle where without entirely understanding why. She left the office at 11:45. She took the service corridor. Jae-hoon was there, not on shift, it was past his hours. Standing near the corridor's secondary junction, which was where the financial department's internal document routing system connected to the hotel's general infrastructure, looking at the wall. He was not doing anything to the wall, he was looking at it. She stopped. "Mr. Kang," she said. He turned, he was not startled. "This is not your area," she said. "I was checking the cleaning schedule for tomorrow," he said. She looked at the wall. The cleaning schedule was posted on a board at the corridor's far end. "Not here," she looked at him. "Schedule is at the other end," she said. "I know," he said. "Then what were you doing?" she said. He held her gaze for a moment. "Thinking," he said. She looked at him. She thought about Emeka stepping aside. She thought about VIP guests. She had collected 3 of these now, who seemed to experience a specific recalibration when they encountered this man. She thought about a mop held by hands that had never been trained by a mop. "You are on the wrong floor past your working hours near a restricted corridor," she said. "If I find you in this area again outside your schedule, it will result in a formal warning." He nodded. "Ms. Okoye," he said. She paused. "The financial irregularities you've been looking at," he said. "You're looking at the right place, but you're looking at the visible layer." She stared at him. "Pattern you've identified," he said. "It's real, but it's a layer on top of a deeper one. If you report only what you can see, you'll expose the smaller theft and miss the larger operation. And the people running the larger operation will make sure you take the fall for exposing it badly." Corridor was very quiet. "Do you know what I've been looking at?" she said. "The same way I know what's happening in most parts of this hotel," he said. "I pay attention." She held his gaze. "Mr. Kang," she said, and her voice was very careful, "what you are describing sounds like surveillance of proprietary financial information." "Which is a serious allegation against yourself," he said. "Then I would suggest you think carefully about what you say next." He looked at her. "The East Wing server room," he said. "Third panel from the left. There's a secondary routing device that isn't on any official infrastructure diagram. It's been there for 14 months. He walked past her. She stood in the corridor. She stood there for a full minute. Then she walked to her office and pulled up the hotel's infrastructure diagram and compared it against the server room's physical layout from the facilities report. Third panel from the left. The diagram showed a standard router. The facilities report showed something that did not correspond to any standard router model in the hotel's procurement records. She sat very still. She thought, "Who is this man?" she thought. "And why does he know this?" She did not sleep well. She found him outside the chairman's office at 9 p.m. on a Wednesday. She was already having a bad day. Victor had spent the afternoon in 3 separate closed-door meetings with 2 of the board members she had been watching. The financial compliance report she had submitted had come back with annotations suggesting someone had read it very carefully and flagged the parts that implicated them, which meant it had been read by the wrong person before it reached the right one. She was tired and alert in the specific, unpleasant combination of diminished sleep and elevated suspicion. She turned the executive floor corridor and he was there, not in cleaning uniform, in his regular clothes. He had a folder, not a cleaning supply folder. A document folder, the kind used for printed reports, the right weight and thickness to contain multiple pages. It was open in his hands and he was reading it, outside the chairman's private office. She felt everything collapse into one clear, terrible point. "Stop," she said. He looked up. She crossed the corridor. "Give me that folder," she said. He held it. She looked at his face and the folder and the chairman's office door behind him, and she assembled a narrative from what she had: a cleaning staff member, unexplained presence on restricted floors, financial knowledge he should not have, now outside the most sensitive office in the building with confidential documents, And the narrative was one she recognized and had terminated careers over before. This, she said, is corporate espionage. Ms. Okoye, give me the folder, she said. He handed it to her. She looked at the contents. A financial analysis, not the hotel's standard reporting format, something more detailed, with annotation in Korean she couldn't read and figures that looked like they came from sources beyond the hotel's internal systems. She looked up. These are proprietary documents, she said. Yes, he said. The elevator arrived. 2 staff members stepped out and froze. You accessed confidential financial information, she said. Her voice was carrying. She knew it was carrying. You are in a restricted area outside working hours with documents you have no authorization to possess. If you'll let me explain, I have given you multiple warnings, she said. I have been watching you for 3 weeks. You are not a cleaner, you are a spy, and as of right now your employment at the Aureum Crown is terminated. Corridor was very quiet. The 2 staff members had been joined by 3 more. Jae-hoon looked at her. He looked at the folder. He looked at her face. Ms. Okoye, he said, and his voice was very quiet and very even. If you remove me from this hotel tonight, security, she said, I need security on the executive floor. You will regret it, he said. She looked at him. That sounds like a threat, Mr. Kang, she said. It's a fact, he said. Then you can explain the difference to the police, she said. Security arrived. Jae-hoon went without resistance. No argument, no raised voice, no physical opposition. He walked between 2 security officers with the specific contained quality of a man who had decided to allow something to happen and was watching what happened when he did. At the elevator, he turned once. He looked at her. He said, look at the 3rd name on page 12. Elevator closed. She looked at the folder in her hands. She thought, don't look, it's manipulation. She opened to page 12. The 3rd name was Victor Adebio. Beside it, account numbers, transfer records, 14 months of systematic theft. She stood at the elevator. She closed the folder. She thought he knew. She thought he was investigating this himself. She thought, and I just threw him out. She pulled his personnel file the next morning with the same attention she had given the financial sheets, the staffing agency. She called again. She asked where the original referral had come from. A pause. A longer pause than the previous call. Then the placement was arranged through our Seoul affiliate. Which client? She said. I'm not able to share that information. She set the phone down. She pulled the security footage from the executive floor. The night she had found him, he had been outside the chairman's office for 11 minutes before she arrived. He had not tried the door. He had stood in the corridor and read the folder. She looked at the folder again. Page 12. 3rd name, Victor Adebio. 14 months of records. The same routing she had found in the gap analysis. The same channels she had been trying to trace. This folder had done the tracing for her. She thought, he gave me this. She thought, he handed it to me when I demanded it. She thought, he knew I would fire him and he gave me the evidence anyway. She sat with this for a long time. Then Victor knocked and opened her door. Morning, he said, with the warm ease of a man whose mornings were consistently untroubled. I heard about the cleaning staff issue last night. Messy business. She said, good call, he said. These external agency hires could have been anyone. Could have been, she said. He sat down. He began discussing the compliance report. She smiled. She agreed to a review meeting. The folder was in her personal bag, not on her desk. She thought, you don't know what I have. She thought, he gave it to me on the way out. She thought, who does that? What she didn't know. Han So-rin, Jae-hoon's personal secretary, had been sitting in a car outside the Aureum Crown for 4 hours after the termination was processed. She had typed the message, he fired you. I need to intervene. His reply had come within 30 seconds. No. Let it stand. She had stared at the message she had typed. She is now in possession of the Adebio file. Without protection, Victor will move against her within 72 hours. His reply had taken longer. Then, I know, watch her, don't contact her directly. If she finds the right thread herself, we'll know she's ready. So-rin had looked at the hotel entrance. She had thought he spent 3 weeks cleaning floors in his own hotel. She fired him in front of witnesses, and he is testing her. She had thought he was always testing her. She saw the car on a Friday evening through the main lobby entrance, a G-Wagon, black. The specific, anonymous luxury of a vehicle chosen to be high status without being memorable. Idling in the no-stop zone, which was a violation the door staff were very carefully not addressing. The rear door was open. Jae-hoon was getting in, not in cleaning clothes. In dark trousers and a jacket she registered involuntarily, the kind of jacket that cost what her monthly salary cost, worn with the ease of something owned rather than borrowed. He had not seen her. She had stopped walking. She watched him fold into the back of the car with the specific, practiced quality of a man for whom this was a familiar location. Victor appeared beside her. Ah, he said. The cleaning man, probably running some kind of operation on the side. She looked at the car pulling away. She thought that is not a man with low-level connections. She thought that is a man being collected. She thought by whom? Yes, she said to Victor. Confirms my instincts. She went to her meeting. She ate nothing. She thought about the car and the jacket and the way he had moved like someone who had decided as they arrived to be invisible, and had not quite managed it. The compliance report was reassigned. She found out through the absence of official notification. The quarterly compliance process she had initiated, with findings she had carefully documented and submitted through the correct channel, had been rerouted to a different review board, a board that Victor chaired. She sat in her office and thought about the folder in her personal bag and what it meant that the findings she had submitted were now in the hands of the person the findings were about. She thought, I am in danger, not physically, professionally. The career-ending danger of identifying a corrupt executive and being outmaneuvered at the institutional level before she could do anything with the identification. She called the staffing agency. I need contact information for Kang Jae-hoon. We're not able to share placement contact details. She ended the call, her phone buzzed, unknown number, Korean area code. She answered, Ms. Okoye, a woman's voice, Korean accent, precise English. My name is Han So-rin, I am calling on behalf of someone you recently terminated. She held the phone. Hang up, the woman said. The compliance report you submitted has been intercepted. Victor Ambw will use the next 48 hours to restructure the evidence chain to implicate you rather than himself. He has done this before. Are you? Nadine said. Someone watching the situation, the woman said. The file you were given, submit it directly to the external audit authority, not through any internal channel. She sent a contact. This is the right person. Are you doing this? Nadine said, a pause. Because someone asked me to make sure you were protected, the woman said. The line went dead. Nadine held her phone. She thought, someone asked me to make sure you were protected. She thought about the folder handed over without resistance. She thought about the corridor. You will regret it, not a threat. A fact. He had known what was coming. She called the external audit authority. She submitted the file. She thought, he is still helping me. After everything I said, after the public firing, after the security escort. She thought why. She found the note on her desk the next morning, not an email, physical on hotel stationery. Handwriting she didn't recognize, the server room. Third panel, tomorrow evening. Someone should be there to witness the removal. She went to her meetings. At 6 p.m. she took the service elevator to the server room level. Jae-hoon was there. She stopped in the elevator doorway. He was standing outside the server room in the same dark jacket, not cleaning uniform, not performing anything, just standing. You don't have access to this building, she said. Correct, he said. Then how? The service entrance on the south side has a lock that's been disengaged for 3 days, he said. Facilities hasn't been notified. That's also worth documenting. She stepped out of the elevator. Mr. Kang, she said. Jae-hoon, he said. She looked at him. Jae-hoon, she said. I owe you an apology. He held her gaze. He did not say it's fine. He did not perform graciousness. He just received it completely without decoration. You were investigating the corruption, she said. Yes, he said, and I made it impossible for you to complete the investigation by firing you publicly. You made it more complicated, he said. Not impossible. She looked at the server room door. Device in the third panel, she said. What is it? A secondary data routing system. It copies specific financial transaction records in real time and transmits them to an external account. 14 months, it's how the money moves without triggering standard audit flags. Installed it, someone with executive access to the infrastructure, he said, with a relationship with an external technology contractor the hotel uses for maintenance. Victor, she said. I need the device physically documented before it disappears, he said. I need a witness with standing inside the hotel, that's why I came back. She looked at him. She thought about 3 weeks of misreading everything, the note on her desk. Someone asked me to make sure you were protected. Been protecting me, she said. He held her gaze. The most honest person in this building, he said. That's not a comfortable thing to be. She held the corridor. She thought about the specific, rare quality of that, not a compliment, a strategic assessment. And underneath it, something else. Jae-hoon, she said. Yes, he said. Who are you? She said. Actually. He looked at her for a long moment, the weighted quality of a man holding something back not because he was afraid but because he was deciding whether now was the time. He opened his mouth, the elevator behind her dinged, the doors opened, Victor Ambw stepped out, he looked at Nadine, he looked at Jae-hoon. His face found its surface after 3 seconds. Nadine, he said. Working late, she looked at Jae-hoon. Jae-hoon gave the smallest possible movement of his head, not now. Server room infrastructure review, she said to Victor. I scheduled a late walkthrough. Right, Victor said, looking between them. I'll leave you to it. He got back in the elevator, the doors closed, she stood in the corridor, she breathed, she turned. Jae-hoon was already at the server room door with a tool she hadn't seen him produce. Minutes, he said. Then we're done. Stood beside him, she watched him work. She thought about who are you actually and the open mouth and the elevator doors and the specific cruelty of timing, she thought. Soon, the board letter arrived on Thursday, formal. Precise. The devastating language of institutional action. She was being placed on administrative suspension pending investigation into the financial irregularities identified in the quarterly audit. Her name, her fingerprints on the reports, her access codes in the system logs. Victor had used 48 hours and she had given him exactly enough time. She sat in her office and read the letter and thought about 15 years. The promotions earned. The standards held so tightly she had never questioned whether the institution holding them with her was operating at the same level. She had trusted the wrong institution. She called Sorin's number, voicemail. She texted, "The board has suspended me." Victor moved the evidence, she thought. Jae-hoon has the server room documentation. But Jae-hoon is not here. Jae-hoon is not here because I fired him. She packed her personal items. She walked through the lobby of the hotel she had managed for 6 years. The staff who saw her leave had the expressions of people watching something they had hoped not to see. She went home. She sat in her apartment. Her phone buzzed. A message from Sorin. "He's handling it. Don't submit anything else." "Wait." She stared at the message. She typed, "Where is he?" Sorin replied, "Getting ready." She held her phone. She thought, getting ready for what? She found the folder outside her apartment door the next morning, sealed envelope. Her name in the same handwriting as the server room note. She brought it inside. She opened it. It was everything, not just Victor, the full architecture of the corruption network. 14 months of documentation. Account structures. Transaction flows. The names of board members who had facilitated it. Records of the previous finance manager whose termination she had been told was voluntary. And something else at the back. 3 pages. Records of external intervention that had prevented specific actions against her. The compliance report rerouting, reversed through a filing she hadn't initiated. Her access codes flagged for unauthorized modification, with a correction timestamped 3 hours before the modification would have registered. The external audit authority contact cross-referenced against an independent submission filed 4 days before she filed her own. Someone had already submitted the Ambw file. 14 days ago, before she had even found it. She sat with the 3 pages. She thought he was always ahead of it. She thought he gave me the file so I could see it. But the submission was already done, she thought. He filed the report himself, she thought. On behalf of the hotel, she stopped. She went back to the original Ambw file's letterhead. She had looked at it before and seen a financial analysis. Now she looked at the metadata. The document originated from a proprietary enterprise system. She searched the system identifier. It was the internal corporate system of the Aureum Crown Group's parent company. She sat at her kitchen table. She thought, he has access to the parent company's systems. She thought, he has access because she opened her laptop. She searched the Aureum Crown Group's corporate registry. Chairman. Hidden. Ownership structure layered through holding companies, deliberately obscured. She searched further. She found a filing from 8 years ago, before the obscuring, before the layers, a single directorship document. Kang Jae-hoon. She sat at her kitchen table at 8 a.m. on a Friday. She looked at the name. She heard in very clear retrospect the thing he had said in the hotel corridor, "You will regret it." She heard her own voice saying, "That sounds like a threat." She heard, "It's a fact." She thought about everything that had happened since. She thought about every insult she had deployed in front of witnesses. She thought about every careful, patient thing he had done afterward. She put her head down on the table. She breathed. She thought, he owned it. He owned all of it, she thought, and I fired him from his own hotel. The media announcement went out at noon. Aureum Crown Group to hold emergency shareholders meeting. Hidden owner to attend publicly for first time in 9 years. Announcement of findings from independent financial investigation. She read it. She thought, today. She thought, he's doing it today. She called Sorin. "Should I be there?" Nadine said. "Yes," Sorin said. "He knows I know," Nadine said. "He must know I found the filing." "Knows," Sorin said. "Is he going to let me explain?" Nadine said. A pause. "I think," Sorin said carefully, "that he has been waiting for you to have something to explain. That's different from letting you." Nadine held the phone. She thought about 9 years of hiding an identity, 3 weeks of holding a mop. What kind of man spent 3 weeks cleaning floors in his own hotel to find out who could be trusted? She thought, he was testing everyone. She thought, including me. She thought, and I failed, and he kept protecting me anyway. "What do I wear?" she said. Sorin made a sound that might have been a laugh. "Whatever you wear when you're being honest," she said. "He can tell the difference." Shareholders' meeting was held in the main ballroom on the 41st floor. Assembled with the controlled urgency of something significant happening, faster than institutions typically moved. Press at the entrance. Board members arriving with expressions of people, given incomplete information. Executives whose body language told the story of people who had known the investigation was coming, and spent the last week calculating where to stand when it arrived. Nadine arrived 20 minutes early. She was not sure why she was there. She had no official standing. She had been told nothing about her role. She stood at the room's edge. Victor arrived 4 minutes before the start. He looked at her. Something moved in his face, not surprise, calculation. The rapid practice calculation of a man running one more estimate. "Nadine," he said with the warmth he deployed like a tool. "I didn't expect to see you." "I didn't expect to be here," she said. "This is a difficult situation," he said. "The board is going to want..." "Victor," she said. He paused. "Know about the routing device," she said. "I know about the accounts. I know about Toy and Ademi." She watched his face. "Be very careful," he said quietly. "And past careful," she said. He straightened his jacket. He moved to the front of the room. She stayed at the edge. She thought, where is he? She thought about the elevator doors and who are you actually, and the open mouth and the moment that had not yet come. She thought, it's coming now. The room settled. Board members took seats. A chairman's seat at the head of the table, empty at every meeting for 9 years, everyone understanding it was not empty by accident but by design, remained empty. The moderator stood. "Opened the meeting." Said the standard language about the emergency session, the investigation. The door at the back of the room opened. He wore black, not the cleaning uniform, not the transit jacket. A suit that was the specific, architectural perfection of something made for a specific person. The statement of someone who does not need your attention, but is choosing to receive it. The room changed before anyone moved. It changed the way rooms changed when something significant entered, not because of noise or announcement, but because of the specific, physical recalibration of people whose bodies registered authority before their minds processed the source. He walked through the door. He walked through the back of the room. He walked past the board members and the executives and the press. He walked like a man in his own hotel, because he was one executive stood. Then another. Then the board members, one by one, with the specific, involuntary movement of people responding to something their professional conditioning had prepared them for, even when the form it arrived in was unexpected. Victor did not stand. Victor was looking at Jae-hoon with the face of a man watching a structure he believed he had dismantled walk back through the door intact. Jae-hoon reached the head of the room. He looked at the chairman's chair. He sat down. The room was completely silent. He looked at the room. Then he looked at Nadine. She was standing at the edge and she was looking at him, and she was aware of this and could not prevent it, not breathing correctly. He held her gaze for 2 seconds. Then he looked at the room. "This meeting has been called to address findings from an independent investigation into financial irregularities at the Aureum Crown Group. I commissioned the investigation 8 months ago. I conducted part of it personally." He let that sit. Victor said, "You can't just walk in here after 9 years and..." "Mr. Ambw," Jae-hoon said, with the specific, complete calm of a man who does not raise his voice because he has never needed to. "You have 14 months of documented theft across 6 accounts, the destruction of evidence in a compliance investigation, the wrongful termination of a previous finance officer, and the attempted framing of a current employee. The documentation has been submitted to the External Audit Authority and the relevant law enforcement bodies." He held Victor's gaze. "You can wait for legal counsel or you can leave now. I don't particularly care which." Victor looked at the room. The room looked at Victor. Victor stood. He walked to the door. He left. Nadine stood at the edge and watched this and thought about 15 years and 6 years at this hotel and the specific accumulated weight of having tried to do things correctly in an institution running a parallel version of incorrectness the entire time. Jae-hoon continued the meeting. He spoke for 20 minutes, directly, precisely, without performance. The investigation findings, the structural reforms. The reinstatement of the suspended employee effective immediately. He looked at her when he said it. She held his gaze. She thought, reinstated, not fired. Reinstated. She thought about what it cost to say that in front of a room of people who had watched her fire him. The meeting concluded. The room emptied. Nadine stood at the edge. She was still there when everyone else was gone. Jae-hoon looked at her from the head of the table. He stood. He crossed the room. He stopped in front of her. She looked at him. "Owe you more than an apology," she said. "You owe me an apology," he said. "That's sufficient." "Called you a thief," she said, "in front of witnesses." He said, "I accused you of corporate espionage," she said. "Yes," he said. "I had security escort you out of your own building," she said. "Yes," he said. "You still helped me," she said. He held her gaze. "Honest," he said. "In a building that has been running on dishonesty for over a year, finding one honest person was worth protecting." She held his gaze. She thought about the most honest person in this building. She thought about what it meant that the owner of the most luxurious hotel in Africa had spent 3 weeks holding a mop to find out what his own institution looked like when it thought nobody important was watching. She thought, "He saw me when I didn't know he was watching." She thought, and what he saw was enough to protect me even after I made it as difficult as possible. "Jae-hoon," she said. "Yes," he said. "You said you'd regret firing me," she said. "Yes," he said. "You were right," she said. He looked at her. For the first time fully without the janitor's careful invisibility, without the undercover management of expression, Kang Jae-hoon's face said the thing it had been holding, not triumph, not satisfaction, something much quieter and more personal. I know, he said. And the way he said it, not I told you so, not finally, but simply the acknowledgement of a truth that had been waiting patiently to be received, was the thing that finally made her breathe correctly again. Outside, Lagos was being Lagos, enormous and alive, and completely indifferent to the 41st floor and the two people standing in it who had spent 3 weeks misunderstanding each other and were now, finally, beginning to understand. She thought he owned it the whole time. She thought every floor I walked, every meeting I managed, every standard I held, she thought he was watching. And he thought it was worth protecting. She thought that is not nothing. She thought that is actually everything. She extended her hand, not the manager's handshake, something more honest than that. He looked at it, he took it. I'd like to keep my job, she said. Something moved in his face. Position is yours, he said. It always was. She held his hand. She thought, start here, she thought, the rest comes after. 12 chapters, 1 boardroom, 1 man who held a mop in his own hotel to find the one honest person left in it. If this story lived in you, if every almost reveal made you want to scream, you know exactly what to do. Like this video immediately. Subscribe right now. Drop a comment below. Where are you watching from, and which moment hit you hardest? The firing, the elevator doors, or when he walked through that boardroom door? Tell me everything. New story next week. Same promise, impossible to stop. I'll see you there. 1 week after the boardroom. Lagos did not pause for corporate earthquakes. The city had seen boardroom coups and executive arrests and institutions reshaped overnight, and it had continued being Lagos through all of them: the traffic, the heat, the specific vitality of a place that did not consider any single event sufficient reason to slow down. Nadine had spent the week doing 3 things: learning the full scope of what Jae-hoon had documented, writing a statement for the External Audit Authority, and thinking about a mop held by hands that had never been trained by a mop. She had not called him. She was not sure what calling him looked like, what register it occupied, what she was calling as. She had been his manager, then his accuser, then the beneficiary of his silence and his protection and his careful, methodical dismantling of the people who had been trying to destroy her career. She did not have a word for what she was now, so she did not call. On Thursday she received an email from the Aureum Crown Group's official corporate communications address. The subject line was, reinstatement, effective Monday. The body was 3 sentences. Her position restored. Her full authority reinstated. A note that her access codes would be active by 8 a.m. Monday and that facilities had been asked to ensure her office was prepared. No signature. She read it twice. She was looking at it on her phone in her kitchen when her buzzer sounded. She answered it. Delivery, the intercom said. She buzzed them up. A courier handed her a flat package. She opened it at her kitchen table. Inside, a document folder. The Aureum Crown's letterhead. And a handwritten note on the front page in the handwriting she now recognized. The position has always been yours. The hotel is better with you in it. KJ8. She held the note. She thought about 3 weeks. She thought about page 12, the 3rd name, handed to her by a man being escorted out of his own building. She thought about an elevator and open mouths and timing. She thought, he is giving me a way back. She thought, not because he has to. She thought, because he still thinks the hotel is better with me in it. She picked up her phone. She dialed. He answered on the 2nd ring. Jae-hoon, she said. Nadine, he said. She held the phone. She thought, start here, the rest comes after. Be there Monday, she said. A pause. I know, he said. She thought about what it meant that he knew that he had expected her, had already known before the call that she would come back, had made arrangements based on certainty about her character that she had not yet fully earned. She thought, he has been reading me correctly from the beginning. She thought I was the one who couldn't read him. Hotel board, she said. The members who were involved in the corruption, what happens to them? Legal process, he said. Standard. The external authority has everything. Chief Balagun, she said. A pause. Also standard, he said, in the specific register that told her the standard for Chief Balagun was a different category of standard from the category applied to ordinary corporate malfeasance. She held her phone. Jae-hoon, she said. Yes, she said. Why did you go undercover? She said. Yourself, not an investigator, not a third party. You 3 weeks with a mop. He was quiet for a moment. Because investigators tell you what they find, he said. I needed to know what was actually there. The people, the culture, who was afraid and who was greedy and who was neither. A pause. Who was honest? She held her phone. And you found one honest person, she said. I found you, he said. She looked at her kitchen. She thought about 15 years of building something on a foundation she had not known was held together partly by a man standing in a service corridor at night, paying attention. She thought about what it meant to be seen that clearly without knowing you were being seen. She thought Monday, she thought start there. See you Monday, she said. Yes, he said. She ended the call. She sat at her kitchen table. She looked at the note in his handwriting. The hotel is better with you in it. She thought about the boardroom. She thought about his face when he said I know, not vindication, not satisfaction, not the expression of a man who had been right about something and was collecting on it. Just the steady, quiet expression of someone who had waited patiently for what was true to become visible. She thought, that's who he is, she thought. He waited for me to be visible to him the same way. She put the note back in the folder, she made coffee, she thought about Monday, she thought it was the right place to start. 3 months later, the Aureum Crown reopened its executive floor to full operations on a Tuesday, new board members, new compliance structure, 2 auditors embedded in the financial team permanently, Jae-hoon's arrangement, made before he left Lagos for Seoul, leaving instructions precise enough that the hotel could run without his physical presence, while remaining connected to him through systems she was still learning the full depth of. Nadine ran the reopening the way she ran everything, completely without margin for the imprecise. The staff had been watching her since she returned, not with the careful avoidance of people working under someone they feared, but with the specific, different quality of people watching someone they had decided to trust. She noticed this. She thought about trust. She thought about what it felt like when you received it before you had earned it, and what it asked of you in return. She thought about a man who had read her correctly from across a service corridor before she had said a single word that mattered. The reopening proceeded flawlessly. At 7 p.m., when the last of the media had cleared and the executives had dispersed and the hotel had settled back into its rhythm, she was in her office finishing the day's final reports when her phone buzzed. A message from a Seoul number. How did it go? She looked at the message. She looked at the hotel through her office window, the lobby, the marble, the specific golden light of the Aureum Crown doing what it had been built to do, which was to make everyone inside it feel significant. She typed back, flawlessly. Obviously, a pause, then, obviously, she almost smiled. She typed, you could have come. Longer pause, then. The hotel runs better when the owner isn't watching. She held her phone, she thought about that. She thought about a man who had built something extraordinary and then stepped back from it deliberately, who had gone undercover with a mop not to assert control but to understand what he had built and who was running it. She thought about what that was, that specific quality of power that expressed itself through restraint rather than display. She thought, he is the same now as he was in the corridor. She thought, that's who he actually is. She typed, when are you back in Lagos? She watched the 3 dots. She watched them for longer than the response warranted. Then, when I'm needed, she held her phone. She typed, that could mean many things, the dots again. Longer, then, I know. She set the phone down. She looked at the hotel. She thought about the note in his handwriting. The hotel is better with you in it. She thought about what it meant that he had written that, not your position is restored, not the investigation requires your continued involvement, but the hotel is better with you in it. Statement about value, about presence, about something that could not be reduced to the professional. She picked up her phone. She typed, then consider yourself needed. She put the phone face down on her desk. She went back to the reports. 3 minutes later her phone buzzed. She did not look at it immediately. She finished the section she was working on, then she picked it up. 1 word, soon. She held the phone. She thought, start here. She thought, the rest comes after. She thought, he always knew that. She put the phone in her bag. She turned off her office light. She walked through the Aureum Crown lobby, past the marble and the light and the gold that had been built by a man who had then stood in it with a mop, watching, waiting for someone honest enough to trust, and out into the Lagos evening. The city continued, so did she. What she never found out, not that night and not for several months after, was that he had been watching the reopening, not through cameras, not through reports. Through a single window of a building across the street from the Aureum Crown, where he had stood for 40 minutes at 7 p.m. on a Tuesday, watching the lobby light the way he had watched it for years, before he handed its management to people he thought he could trust. He had watched the lobby. He had watched the staff moving through it with the specific, confident ease of a team that had been reset and was running correctly. He had watched Nadine pass through once, visible through the glass, in the focused, complete way she moved through every space she managed, like someone who had decided the room was hers and was simply occupying what belonged to her. He had thought, there she is. He had thought, that's the hotel I built. He had put his phone back in his pocket. He had gone to the airport. He had looked once at the message she had sent, consider yourself needed, and had thought about what it meant and what it asked and what he intended to do about it. He had sat in the back of the car to the airport and thought about Lagos. He had thought, soon, he had meant it.